Let me just set something up. Let's get this. Oh, wait a minute! I've loaded this thing half a dozen times. No, I haven't. Let's get this necktie party going.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. I'm resident of Collinwood. This is Patrick McCray, as you can see.
Yes.
And we're here to discuss his book, The Dark Shadows Daybook by Patrick McCray. I'm going to read afterward, to you, and you can chime in whenever you want to.
Okay.
Who's up for a bit of hearsay? Okay, great. Does Dark Shadows belong in the 21st century? Does it belong anywhere after 1971? Is it even a franchise? Or is it just one story that really should be left alone? These are difficult questions. Many enjoy the different incarnations of Dark Shadows beyond the frightening 1,225. And yet, are any of them completely satisfying? If not, is that the fault of subsequent artists? Or is it the fault of the source material? It is resonant and relevant outside of the tremendous, if wonky, sense of style in the original series. When I think of Dark Shadows, I think of the characters and storylines, and I think of the grand sets.
What did I say?
Sorry.
Sometimes I don't know what I said. I was just making things up.
Sets the alien array of fabrics and textures in the costumes.
Oh, yeah. No, I had no idea what I said.
I think you do.
Hang on, I'm going to look, because now you got me curious. I make up words. Like, there's a word I made up that's coming up to describe some velour.
Really?
I like to make up words for synthetic fabrics. Hang on. So where are we? Because I don't know. What on earth was I blithering about? Okay, good. Yes. Where were we? Tremendous if wonky.
It's
alien fabric and texture. Oh, claustrophobically?
Yes.
Yes, and they are. And who's ever said claustrophobically? No one. Why did I write it? I don't know. It was late.
Can I ask you something real quick before I continue reading?
Why not? Yeah.
Do you think Dark Shadows belongs in the 21st century, where we're at now, 2021?
That's a question I answer in this essay.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that in a sec. And the thing is, I don't know, but I wrote about it as if I did. So.
Okay. Monotonous soundscape and those limits of video technology in the era which turned everything the color of pea soup, except the blue candles. These are as much as part of Dark Shadows text as the dialogue, or the blocking or the substance of the stories. Is diabolic in those details. Future producers of Dark Shadows will provide or invalidate whether these characters and their mythos have the ongoing relevance for new sentimental audiences. We can only supplicate on their success. I would like to think that Dark Shadows has that kind of culture transcendence, but when a new series was announced in late summer of 2019, I was surprisingly disturbed. My voice was non-committal about it online. My fingers had been burned enough times that I knew one thing was certain. Every day we have went without a new Dark Shadows was the day we went without a bad new Dark Shadows. Alan Moore has maintained that not every property needs to be a movie. He was referring to his comic books, but similarly, not every television show needs to be remade. I agree with that. This is not live theater where the play is functionally dead to the world. If it's not being performed somewhere, so you can always leave it alone. It's a safe philosophical and it's respectful philosophy. And if Paramount Pictures had held to the philosophy, we would have been denied the two finest hours in the entire Star Trek canon. Of course, I'm talking about Star Trek V, but I'm also talking about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Paramount's motivation was money. I'm sure they would have been perfectly happy to film kittens overheating red, blue, gold value for 2 hours if it made a buck. As Star Trek, however, in one of those bizarre accidents that can only occur when there's no one in charge to stop it. There was greatness. Thank you, Nicholas Meyer. Meyer was a fine writer. From a family steeped in formal psychology and literature, and he had just enough objectivity about Star Trek to see and detail and present its eternal truth like nothing else. Trek was no longer about 79 episodes of a television show from a very specific network, with a very specific look and a very specific sound, and a very specific position relative to the tumult of the late 1960s. Star Trek finally lived. And if Star Trek could live, so could Dark Shadows. The characters have just as much color and chemistry and decisiveness. There is just as much gravitas. There is just as much humor. The frequently poignant take on the human condition may be more subtle, contemplated on Dark Shadows, but it's very much there. If you want to stable triumvirate.
Yeah, that's what they call Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, the triumvirate.
Sorry, of bickering problem solvers, I give you Julia, Willie, and Barnabas. I agree. They bicker a lot. So the task before future producers is simple. Simply be as talented as Nicholas Meyer, and good night.
That's it. That's your full solution. Just be as talented as one of the greatest writer-directors of the 1980s. It's that simple.
Right. I'll wait and I'll read the rest of this.
Whatever you like.
Okay. Well, I do want to ask you something. A couple questions here, and then let me turn this camera on you because I'm asking you. Do you think we will get this? This will happen?
Yeah, I do. Now, the reason I asked you to look at to sort of jump ahead and look at the afterword is because it was news today when we woke up.
Right.
And I don't know if it'll be this iteration, but Hollywood is very, 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 they have to make a lot of money really fast. Mike Stoklasa has a really good Red Letter Media video about this. They have to make money fast. And so they can't take a risk on a property that is unknown.
Right.
That's why you see endless sequels and franchises and things like that. So given that, Dark Shadows is a franchise that's known. I mean, if they can make a Car 54 Where Are You movie, they can do this. And the Dark Shadows movie itself, even though it wouldn't have anything to do with that, did well in foreign markets. Right. So, while there is still anyone out there who goes, Dark Shadows, wasn't that okay, they'll make a movie about it. Or they'll make another series about it. Right. I like where this person's going.
Right.
And so, let's see what they do.
I asked you this earlier when we talked this morning. When do you think they should bring Barnabas in?
It's like 5 minutes before the pilot starts.
Right.
I personally, I don't believe in the... Okay, did you watch Picard?
Yes. The Next Generation, yes.
Yeah, well, the new Picard TV series.
Oh, no. That I have...
Well, spoiler alert, at the end of the season, after 12 episodes or whatever it was of just kind of twaddle, Suddenly, Picard, who's dying of a terminal illness and who's been fighting for android rights because now they're kind of on the run and all of that, gets his brain put in the body of an android. Well, this is actually the most interesting, hardcore Trek idea they could have. This is exploring the human condition better than anything else. But they waited until the last bloody episode to have their one good idea. So start, if you know this in the writer's room before you film anything, start with the one good idea and build it on that. If everybody's coming to see Barnabas and you don't know how long this series is going to last, we've waited 40 years. Give us our effing Barnabas.
Can I give you what I'd like to see by the end of this if this happens?
By all means.
I think because Dr. Hoffman would have kept blood samples of Barnabas's vampire DNA. Julia was very proficient in this. She was very cunning. She was one of the smartest women out there from a fictional character standpoint.
Sure. The smartest people.
Right. I think the one person she would have trusted that with would have been Quentin, that blood. Because Willie wouldn't be alive, if we're talking modern day. So Quentin is maybe living near enough Collinsport to know what's going on there. Not necessarily in it, but close. So he sees the trouble coming. He knows where Barnabas is buried. He goes.
A little hammer action.
Right. And he says, he opens the coffin. He has the blood, the vial. And he says, "We need you, old man," and just dumps the blood on the skin and comes back. Here comes Barnabas back.
That's great. Yeah. I think that's fantastic.
Who would you like to see play Quentin? If they have.
Well, it depends. Are we doing this as a continuation of the series, or are we doing this as a remake or something in between?
Let's do continuation.
David Selby.
Nice.
Yeah, David Selby. I mean, there's no, he is Spock to the Dark Shadows franchise. He's the man. Yeah.
To me, Selby is as cool as Steve McQueen, like Quentin is to me.
Oh, I disagree. He's far cooler. Infinitely. And taller.
Right.
He's much taller. You could fit two Steve McQueens into one David Selby. So I think it's a better value.
That's actually, my grandfather showed me Steve McQueen. He showed me Nevada Smith, was one of a Western I saw as a kid. So I was so impressed by his coolness. So I always, when I think of cool, the person who defined it for me was McQueen. So when I measure, when I'm
living a Selby-deprived lifestyle, what happens?
No, not at all. Listen, I'm going through 18, the Quentin Collins arc, and I love David Selby to death. I really do. I love his character. I think he's so on all the time. I call Quentin the OG pimp because he's such a ladies' man.
Yes, true that, yo. As Elizabeth Collins Stoddard might have said.
What's something you personally want to see in the New Dark Shadows?
This is all in what we're looking at right now.
Okay.
I'm serious. That's why and this is unreleased material, which I don't think people know about in the Daybook.
Okay.
So,
well, let me continue reading for you, and I will pick right back up where I left off. So, where was it? Let's see if I got one more. And good. Okay, I had to think for a long time, a couple of years before I could address the 2019 prospect of a new show. Assembling this book let me, for the third time in my life, see Dark Shadows, that varied and disparate beast as one great story. A sloppy story, maybe necessarily so because of the ad way in which it was assembled. But does it have a prologue? Yes. Does it have a beginning and a middle and an end? Yes. It even has an epilogue. So while it might not win the Engine Scribe Prize for the well-made soap, it's still a story. So start by telling the story in ways both of knowing all of it beforehand, like you were saying, like make sure you have everything set up. Like
yeah,
right.
Because so here's the thing. You already have the story ready to go.
Right.
Unlike the original writers, now you know what it is ahead of time. Now, when you're talking about David and that stupid pen or whatever,
right.
You already know about the parallel time room.
Right.
They already scare the kids with Judah Zachary.
Right.
It's already there. Yeah.
Right. By approaching the story of Dark Shadows knowing all of the spoilers, contemporary authors can give audiences the rich experience only implied by the original. Yes, they have always been seen weird things in the parallel time room, like you said. Yes, every naughty Collins child, which means every Collins child is kept in line with warnings that Judah Zachary, like you were saying, will get you if you're not good. And he will, from the beginning, Dark Shadows always had an acute sense of the family's heritage. It's just that now it can be consistent, still narrative serves as an inspiration, not as an incarceration. Have a better day. Great. The world needs it, no matter what is changed. Fans will remain faithful as long as the writers stay true to the characters and put them on their individual indiscrepancies?
Idiosyncrasies.
Or sorry.
Qualities, yeah.
Sorry. Idiosyncrasies. First, the science of doing that lives at the intersection of decisions and values. Barnabas will be Barnabas to the extent that his choices are unique to him. And if those choices and new ones come out of what he values most, do that for him and the other characters, and you will have Dark Shadows. It doesn't matter if they are fighting Count Patafe or trying to persuade Harold
Hecuba.
What was that, sorry?
Harold Hecuba.
Harold Hecuba.
Remember him from Gilligan's Island? He's the producer that they put on the musical version of Hamlet for. Remember that? To get off the island, Phil Silvers.
Oh my God. To get them out of Collinsport with a musical version of Hamlet. Want more? Here are 10 guidelines I would have for any future writers of Dark Shadows. Here we go, guys. Number 1, here's Patrick's 10. Everyone tuning in knows the origin story, like Patrick was saying earlier. So make it mercifully brief. What's important can be conveyed into intermittent flashbacks. I agree with that. 2, in tone and perhaps content, build the show on what it was doing at its most popular rather than retrending the trial and error of the initial writers. And don't be afraid to change things up. They've seen the details of Dark Shadows. Now explore its essence and implications. 3, bring out the big guns as soon as possible. You were mentioning Barnabas, that bring him out as soon as you can. Good writers can always find another kitchen sink to throw in. Number 4, however, recreate the sets meticulously. 5, Barnabas is not the villain. Although he makes certain decisions a villain might, this is a terrified fish out of water who believes his poker face is better than it is. A lost aristocrat with an 18th century set of morals, prejudice, and assumptions. He's stuck with redneck best friend and an irresistible intellectual dame for a coincidence. He's an enlightenment optimist in defiance of the facts. He's a man with extraordinary abilities that require terrible sacrifices. Unlike other media vampires, he has no master to apprentice. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
As he seeks a cure, he struggles with the knowledge that a human Barnabas is a vulnerable Barnabas, as are his friends. Number 6, let vampires be folk legends within the universe of the series, but not familiar pop fiction icons. By this point, the mortals need an excuse to not know what to do about vampires. Number 7, let Julia, unrequested love, give her wisdom and irony. This fuels her disagreements and tempers what might be barbed cavils. She's Beatrice Straight in Network. Number 8, the show's humor comes from the steadfast denial of wasp to acknowledge apocalyptic circumstances. I like that. I would model the deeping out of Barnabas/Willie relationship on Blackadder and Baldric. Number 9, use the Wizard of Oz energy of an ensemble of actors that reappears of the various eras. Allow Barnabas to dynastic view of a time traveler. Let him see patterns as family fortunes rise and fall over the centuries. Don't be afraid to reassign last names and name some characters. If it tends poetic renaissance, let Maggie be Maggie.
Now, here's where I get to wacky water. People either love it or I'm going to be burned at the stake. Jim Pearson will organize some sort of, a group of attack dogs hunting me down across Terrytown for my heretical views. Coming up, here I go.
Well, from one fan to another. Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right.
This is really good. I mean that. This is.
Thank you. I gave a lot of thought to it.
So, these fortunes are always fault. Don't be afraid to reassign characters like Maggie. Let Maggie be Maggie Dupree's. Let Julia be Julia Trask. Let Willie and Elliot be diametrically opposed brothers, either named Loomis or Stokes, descendants, of course, of Ben. Number 10, reverse the Maggie/Barnabas dynamic.
Yeah. All right, so now 9 and 10, and 10 has a bunch of little sub things to it. Those are really where the business. This is where, for better or worse, we get the McCray Dark Shadows. And by the way, Joel, I am screen recording this.
Okay.
So if it helps, I can send this to you.
Okay.
And you can edit it together. So I'm in a little. You're the star here, and I'm in a little postage stamp up in the corner. I
use this tablet here to record. I'm calling you. I'm calling you off my computer, which I never had done before until you, because again I'm not the most computer savvy person.
It's the great experiment. I love it.
It is. It really is for me. But.
All right. Well, what I was saying is this is where we get into the real wacky weeds. Right. So I think when I started really giving this some thought, on one hand, it's a little too neat when everyone's kind of just related to each other. But, I mean, geez Louise, it's a little too neat when you have the same actors playing their own descendants over and over again. So it's kind of like judo. With judo, you don't fight the energy of your opponent. You use the energy of a weird situation against it. And so in this case, use that.
Right.
If you have basically, a set number of major families in Collinsport, make Maggie Dupree. Make her the descendant of one of Josette's relatives. Let Julia, even if she moved away, be a Trask.
Right.
So that Barnabas has this very weird relationship with a Trask helping him.
Right.
And we get to see that the Trasks actually are a family who went good rather than bad. And then finally, I'm really big on the idea of Willie Loomis and Elliot Stokes being brothers.
Right.
Because I think that's where Willie stole the plans to get into the crypt. That Elliot was doing research, and he had them, and his sleazy brother came in.
Now, I've always told myself, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So I could see that with Dark Shadows, to where Willie maybe snuck into a Professor Stokes' house, stole it without him knowing.
Sure, and keep in mind what I'm talking about here is a reboot.
Right.
It's a remake. It's not a continuation. These are all the things we know about Dark Shadows. What made it work? What creative decisions might make these things work even better? Because this is not the periodic table. Right. If I move one or two things around, all of matter in the universe is not going to collapse. What I would hope to do, and what I would hope they would do, is to take the elements of Dark Shadows and say, here's a recipe with some ingredients that worked tremendously well. What happens if maybe we put in an extra patty, a little less special sauce, some extra, and basically take the Big Mac, but just reconfigure it a little bit, because otherwise, if you don't do that, just watch the show. Just watch the original show. You have no reason to redo it unless you're going to try and bring out its essence even more. Because Dan Curtis was responding to all of these classics, all of these pieces of literature. I mean, it wasn't a original when he did it. He was responding to that, and so new producers are responding not only to Dark Shadows, they're responding not only to all the classics Dan Curtis was remaking when he remade Dark Shadows, but they're responding to the idea of remaking the remake of all of those classics. So have fun. Let it go.
Here's the thing, too, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I have on television. There's a lot of Dark Shadows-esque like shows.
Sure.
That are, yeah. They're not called Dark Shadows, but you could call them that.
You could. I call them bad. Well, right. That's just me.
No, right. To me, what I mean by that is they have to see this is out there. You know what I mean? The creators now have to see what's out there and go, you know what? We're going to do it better than what they're doing.
Sure. Yeah, and they don't want to be tied down to Warner Brothers. They don't want to be tied down to Dan's daughters. They don't want to be tied down to anyone who might have, God forbid, an opinion. Yeah. And the thing is that I'm sorry, but if you're doing Dark Shadows, then you have to go with the people who own Dark Shadows and love Dark Shadows. And so the Dan's daughters are crucial, yep. And Jim Pearson is crucial. These things are crucial to putting it on because they know it and they understand it. I'm not a big fan of Star Trek Discovery, and Gene's son is in the opening credits there, kind of, I guess, just to indicate that he's picking up a check, but it's clear that Gene's son may be on it, but Gene isn't.
Right.
And everything. It's been so nice in the interviews that I've read with Dan's daughters talking, how much they care about this, and that's what's missing. That's what I think is just essential.
I think the one thing I take away most from the Bloody Disgusting article is that everybody involved cares. Like Siemens,
yes.
And
yeah.
That's the one thing I love the most. Everybody seems to care.
Yeah.
So, I look at it like this. Even if it doesn't happen, I don't think these people are going to give up, which makes me feel good.
Yeah, I agree.
We talked about this earlier. Who would you cast as Barnabas?
That's really tough. I would cast, if I could cast anyone really and have the audience not worry about age too much, I'd cast Kyle MacLachlan. Yeah. I think he's very good. I think whoever you cast, You have to cast someone who can handle the fear and vulnerability first, just kind of barely tamped down. This has far more in common with Frasier than Frankenstein, and than with that whole universe. I really think so. I think that if you can find that actor, and if you can let him be vulnerable, and if you can let him play humor, you gotta find a funny guy. People would not be able to keep a straight face. Hell, I'd get Ryan Reynolds.
He's a good actor. I mean,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I'd like them to get. I mentioned the other guy earlier, but I'll mention this guy now. The guy who played in Revenge of the Sith, who played Anakin Skywalker.
Hayden Christensen.
Yes.
Hayden, why not? Sure.
But, I mean, because he's Canadian, Jonathan was Canadian, so he's very good. I loved him as a heel. And Barnabas is that Shades of Grey character I could see him portraying, because Barnabas could be both at the same time at times.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Is there a character you want to see come back in this?
Yes, all of them.
Okay.
Okay, so the characters that I would just put right at the top of my list. Of course, you got Barnabas, Willie, Julia, Quentin. You got all of them. Carolyn, Roger, Liz. The core David, the core family ensemble. You gotta give me Professor Stokes.
Yeah.
And you absolutely have to bring in Count Patofi. This is one of the things I said a few points back. Is I said, look at what the show was doing when it was at its best, not when it was stumbling to get there. And I think the 1991 series recreated part of how it was getting there, rather than saying, what do people really remember and love about it? Well, it was probably around the time they did the Viewmaster reel, so let's base it on that. Now, the character that I talk a lot about coming up is Maggie. Man. I have very little interest personally in Victoria Winters. She was the first protagonist. She has a symbolic value, but she is literally drained as a character so that Barnabas takes over as the main character. And Victoria's a character from the real world, kind of, and Barnabas is a character from a more of a fantasy world. And they didn't really interact as well as I would have liked. However, Maggie is always part of kind of that other world of Barnabas's. And so she belongs more. Victoria's great, love her, but the show moves on,
I always feel with a lot of these characters, and Victoria included, they could have did so many spin-offs with Dark Shadows.
Well, they weren't doing spin-offs back then, but if they were doing it now, you bet.
Yeah.
I mean, Laura Parker sort of did with Heiress to Collinwood.
Yeah. I read that book. That is really, really good. I have it.
She's a marvelous writer. Yeah.
I love the twist where Vicky's this TV reporter. She's coming through time.
Yeah.
What are your top 5 moments in Dark Shadows?
Oh, okay. Smashing the Leviathan box.
Okay.
It comes like a lot of smashing things. When Barnabas smashes the equipment that's bringing Eve back to life. That's number 2. Angelique getting shot the second time by Trask is number 3. I would say the entire sequence where Quentin finds out he has a son, and just his response to that is number 4. And just selfishly, when Trask tries to call upon the powers of the Almighty to stop Nicholas Blair, and Nicholas just turns around and does that. Is that little clap for Trask after he reanimates his spirit down in the cellar. Those are my 5 top moments.
On Twitter, I was seeing the different covers you talked about choosing for your book here.
Oh, yeah.
So, why this cover, man, obviously?
Well, there's a real funny story to that cover. Okay, so I had been playing around with a bunch of covers, and of course that's Wallace's job, because Wallace is a graphics genius. But I'm like Lucy to his Desi. I'm always trying to get in on the act.
Right.
So I had been toying around with a lot of covers and cover ideas, and I was reading a book on book covers, which is what you do on a Kindle during a pandemic. You know, you kind of starved for entertainment. And they mentioned this, having a good, bold, solid image and one you don't have to pay for. So I thought, the cane against a red background with Dark Shadows Daybook. And so I took my trash can and I turned it over. I put my Barnabas cane and I took a picture of it, turned it into a book cover. And Wallace said, that's great. And then Wallace reminded me that he had come up with a logo for the Dark Shadows Daybook podcast that was almost exactly the same thing. I was plagiarizing us without even remembering that I was doing it. So that is Wallace's design. That's very much Wallace's design for the Daybook podcast that he adapted for the cover. And it's a snappy cover.
This is beautiful. This is a beautiful cover.
The whole book is gorgeous.
It is.
People at Amazon told me it was the most beautiful book they had seen inside in years.
I really am enjoying this so far, like where I'm at. And after we're done, obviously here, I'm gonna do another read along. But okay. I have a couple more. I have some more questions for you. Is there an actor from the original series you want to see come back, or actors?
Yeah, I mean, any of them who want to.
Right.
I mean, that's number one. Any of them, yeah. I mean, it's more like what actors would I not want to see come back, and I can't think of any. But Laura, Catherine, David, Nancy, Jerry, Roger, and I'm probably leaving someone out, and when I walk away, I'll think of them and I won't forget. Oh, for God's sake, James Storm.
Yeah.
My God, bring back James Storm and give him a lot to do. One of the most exciting interviews I ever did was with that guy. He is just a fireball of intelligence and intensity, and he has so much to offer. Yeah.
I could see James Storm being like the new sheriff of Collinsport.
You know what? I can see James Storm doing anything James Storm wants to do. Knocking it out of the park.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness. Let me think. When did you first get into Dark Shadows? Because I meant to ask that.
1982. January. I think the first Monday in January 1982. They started showing it in syndication in Louisville, Kentucky on WAVE. And some friends of my mother's said, oh, you like monsters and stuff, you like this. And it's got Kate Jackson on it.
Right.
Well, little did I know it was going to be a little bit of a wait until Kate Jackson showed up. But, yeah, that's it. And it was like, because I was, 11?
No.
It was like when I was 11 and learning to drink scotch. And no, I didn't learn to drink scotch when I was 11. I was 12. But no, and you tell yourself with these things, it's an acquired taste, and you got okay, and it really tastes like the inside of an ashtray. Dark Shadows does not taste like the inside of an ashtray.
No.
But for an 11-year-old boy who's expecting the Munsters,
right, having
to listen to like stuff about Jason McGuire blackmailing this woman into marrying him, sometimes for days before you get back to the vampire, is a lot. It requires a lot of love, and so but it paid off. It
right.
pays off, and soon I was in love with it, and I thought Jason McGuire was a worse villain than Barnabas.
I think the one thing Dark Shadows did for me when I first started watching it, when it re-aired on the Sci-Fi Channel, that's when I first watched it. It draws you in. It draws you like it's like you're being sucked into the screen and you're sitting there with them.
Yeah.
And you're a part of it.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're there. And that's something I've always loved about it and still do when I watch the Coffin box set. Do you own the Coffin box set, Patrick?
I have the Coffin box set in a closet here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I had the DVDs. I was too poor to get the VHSs, but when the DVDs came out, I got them set after set after set, and I think I still have those DVDs. The boxes, the individual boxes as they came out.
I remember seeing like the individual DVDs at FYE, and they were all lined up in order.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I got these off Amazon when they came out, and it was quite something. And it was a real feeling of accomplishment. I didn't think they were gonna do it. I didn't think they could do it. I really didn't. And by God, they did.
If let's say they don't find like a television or a streaming service to put Dark Shadows on, the new one,
mm-hmm.
could you see them going, like putting it on YouTube, sort of the way Cobra Kai did or Family Guy?
If there's money to be made, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about the Benjamins. if they think there's money, to be made, and there is, then they'll do anything.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In and out of reality.
I see that.
Like a hookah. With tobacco. Kids.
When did you first start this Daybook? Start writing it?
Okay. Well, what happened was I had done a couple of big Dark Shadows projects. I did this watch through thing, and I did this thing called Collins Chronicles, which, if you haven't read it, is an episode companion to the series. It's very different. I was really proud of that. And then I did some other stuff. I did a special Collins Chronicles about Quentin. And then I moved and I did a watch through the show, but I did it backwards. I did all kinds of stuff. And what I wanted was an episode guide. Right. And we had the episode guide that Pomegranate put out, which was very good, but it was about a couple of sentences per episode. Right. And then you have Nicholas Mooneyhan's episode guide, which is fantastic, but it's a lot. I mean, it's to read about a single episode, you're going to get a thorough experience, but it's going to be a great investment of time. And what I was looking for was the kind of episode guide that we had published in the 1980s, where you got maybe a 7 or 8 sentence paragraph per episode. And so I approached Wallace about that. And he had this Daybook idea, and he kept describing it to me, and I kept pretending not to understand what he said because it sounded like too much work. Honestly, I'm a lazy man, and it sounded like too much work. So I sort of fumbled my way through it for a while, thinking, well, Wallace wants this. Maybe if I give him this and make it flashy enough, he'll say, oh, that's okay, Patrick. No, he was never critical. But he when asked, he would be very true to his vision, which is how the Daybook turned out. So if you like it, you have to thank Wallace McBride and his editing. I mean, there is no Daybook without him.
Well, let me give a huge shout out to Wallace McBride at Cousin Barnabas. You guys should hold your head up high. I mean, so far I'm enjoying the hell out of it, but
thank you.
It really is. I mean, it's a testament to, I think, any fan. If you never watched Dark Shadows, like ever, you could pick up this book and start reading it and get hooked. And I think that's something, speaking as a fan, I appreciate the most.
That means the world. That's incredible. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't really have any more questions for you. Is there anything you want to add?
If you don't mind,
Oh.
I want to look at the very last part of that afterward, because that's where
Sure.
I get the real nutty part of the show. That's where it that's what I have a copy. This is my copy of the Daybook. It's this sheaf of printouts from like a month ago, and because it specifically, it's number 10, because this, I think, is either the secret to this thing being a success again, it's the biggest change, or it would be the biggest curse.
Yeah.
And I don't know which.
Can you hold that up real quick again? I'm sorry. Thank you. So people can see it.
Yeah, this.
Wow.
I don't have a copy of the book. I actually don't have a copy of it.
You don't have a copy, man?
No.
Somebody needs to get Patrick a copy of his own book.
I'm telling you.
They really did. I will read that for you. Give me 1 minute.
Because this is the thing where, if you're going to have opinions, this is where they're going to be.
Right. Okay. I'm at letter A. To wit, if you had Maggie grow up poor in Collinsport, and if you know that your relative was once married into the family, and if there is reportedly a portrait of Josette that favors you in that big house, and if you get a gig as the governess there, you are going to have a lot of what-if fantasies of being a Collins. B. Barnabas shows up and she immediately puts the pieces together about his secret. There may not be Anne Rice books on the shelves, but she's heard the legends and knows a vampire when the mirror doesn't see one. I like that. C. His issue now is trying to avoid her dark fairy tale desires of becoming an ageless vampire. He knows that it's only a matter of time until Angelique shows up, and he does not want to lose Josette all over again, as he has to love Maggie while denying it, despite her entreaties to the contrary. D. Of course Quentin turns up. His challenge is that Delaware Tate never finished the painting, so it works like a weird kryptonite variant and can have a new and unpredictable effects whenever needed by the writers. He has obviously no Josette baggage, and he is free to pursue Maggie as much as he wants. This creates natural tension between Barnabas and Quentin, as the former has to suffer through the latter romancing a woman he must claim not to love. It also clears some of the path for an eventual Barnabas-Angelique reconciliation. E. As it turns out, maybe Maggie and Barnabas were just meant to be friends. Maybe he is supposed to be with Angelique. Maybe Maggie is supposed to be with Quentin, or maybe no one is supposed to be with anyone. Maybe that's subject to change. This is a useful message for people who feel trapped by fate and the notion that they have only one possible true love. It's the eventual message of the original series, and if seen through all the way.
There you go.
And I like these pictures, by the way. These are good.
They're great.
So.
Yeah, so in terms of, because there's a lot of gender weirdness with Maggie kind of being a victim and being a damsel, and that's just not who we are as a culture now.
Right.
Since the audience all wants to be vampires, make Maggie one of that audience, and now it's Barnabas's job to protect her. He's just seen her go up Widow's Hill once, and yet she's throwing herself at him.
Right.
So how does he protect her and say, no, really not interested, when he desperately is, and then has to give her up to Quentin?
Right.
Maybe. I think it's very exciting.
Do you? I just thought of a question. I'm sorry. Do you think the hand of Patofi is out there?
Not only do I think the hand of Patofi is out there, I can smell it.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, and a thing for Big Finish that I only thought of too late is what a wonderful anthology of little short 5-minute audio dramas would have been. That's just the journeys of the hand of Count Patofi.
Nice.
Just from loses it to when he gets it back, just that period. But then you can do later stuff. Yeah. It's the other body parts of Patofi you need to watch out for.
Yeah.
That I'm worried about showing up again.
Could you see the hand attaching itself to another person's arm?
Thank God you said arm. Yes. I didn't know where you were going with that. Sure. Yeah, arm, why not?
Right.
Foot? Yeah, foot, ear, nose, mouth going in. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I think that's a great idea. What if, now here's the thing. Now, fan out with me for a moment. What if Darth Vader got the hand of Count Patofi?
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
Wouldn't that be great?
Right. That would be awesome.
Had put the hand of Count Patofi on Data in Star Trek First Contact.
There you go. I like that. I'll tell you who. Well, let me ask you something. Is there any fictional character from another franchise you ever want to see in Dark Shadows?
Yes. Yeah. I believe that that Joshua had many children,
Right.
some of which he did not acknowledge, some of which went west,
Right.
and that there is a certain dealer in specialized antiques who has a contentious relationship with his brilliant son, who actually is the heir to the Collins fortune. Not Daniel, who's from another branch. No. Sanford Collins. Fred Sanford Collins. Fred Sanford from Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
And he takes over Collinwood, and that I would love to see. I would love to see Fred Sanford take over. Let him deal with Nicholas Blair, because he's got the brains.
Yes, he does.
Okay, but you're asking more seriously than that, I think.
Well, whatever you want to give, man.
I mean, Herbert West.
Right.
Herbert West, the animator. I think you have to pick things that kind of work in that sort of tone and universe. Dr. Phibes.
Yep.
I think Anton Phibes would be an interesting character to see. I created my own spin-off character, Anton Castile, for Child of Dark Shadows, which is the fake movie where Wallace and I fooled people into thinking they made a third Dark Shadows movie. And the review of Child of Dark Shadows is in the back of the Daybook, by the way.
Cool.
Describing an entirely fake franchise that they tried to do. But how about you? What would you like to see?
I think the two fictional characters I would love to, if they ever did it, one's from the pulps, and that's Solomon Kane, because he's my favorite really pulp character. He's a legendary witch hunter. He was made after every legendary swordsman, pretty much.
Yeah.
And if he was holding that flintlock pistol instead of Barnabas, we wouldn't be having this conversation, Doc.
He'd be a headshot, but he's from the right era-ish and the right part of the world.
Yep. And obviously, I'm a huge Halloween fan, so Michael Myers. So.
Michael Myers, yeah, and Dr. Loomis.
Right.
Yeah. Now, oh my God, Dr. Loomis is Julia's ex.
Right.
Now there is, if you're a pulp fan, there is a very loving Doc Savage reference in Burke Devlin's obituary, which is in the middle of page 248. Or episode 248, there's an obituary for Burke.
Mm.
And in there is a very purposeful, very loving Doc Savage reference.
I love the Twilight Zone reference, by the way, that you put in there.
Oh, yeah, that's in the same one,
Yep.
about the things on the thing of the plane, sure.
Do you think Superman ripped off of Doc Savage?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, those boys were reading Doc Savage.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, Clark, Savage, Kent, Allard, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Superman is a flying Jewish Doc Savage because he's got the black hair. His name is Kal-El.
Yep.
He is an immigrant, and he is there to protect, like a golem.
Here's the thing, too. Doc Savage had a fortress of solitude. Superman had a fortress of solitude. Yeah. So I just think a lot of things, what people don't realize is they were ripped from the pulps. Really.
Yeah, these were just pulps with pictures.
Right, yes.
God bless them.
Yes.
If you've never read the book, there's a novel that's kind of about the creation of Superman, but not, called The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. If you haven't read it, man, you won't be able to put that thing down.
I'm too busy not putting another book down, man.
That's fine. The Daybook first.
Right. The Daybook first.
Right.
Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Yeah. This is a fandom that takes a lot to get into.
It does.
It takes a lot of time, more than anything, and that's what people are most selfish about, most protective about. And so I think there is a wonderful bond in Dark Shadows fandom, because no matter how much you might disagree with other people and their views on things,
yep.
You know that they have literally done the time. They have given 950 hours of their life, or 450 hours of their life. Yes, 450 hours of their life to this. And so I hope to be able to provide something that doesn't tell Dark Shadows fans anything new, but if they hadn't thought of putting these little pieces of the kaleidoscope together this way, it does. And they go, oh, yeah, well, I always noticed that, but now I have an argument. I am so fond of this franchise and of the incredible affection of the people within it. And I would not want to be a part of any franchise more than this. I am so honored.
You guys at the Collinsport Historical Society, Wallace, McBride, you, Patrick, you guys have done an amazing job. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You guys have done.
We just love it.
You guys have done an amazing job. Speaking from one fan to another, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I mean that. Thank you. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. I'm going to read some more tonight. But I want to first thank you for giving me your time, because I know it's valuable. If you ever want to come on, please just let me know. I have an open door policy.
Right.
So, and I love talking to Dark Shadows fans like you guys. So
it's great.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for what you're doing. And you're keeping Dark Shadows alive with what you're doing. And you're just as important. And we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. I just love it. It's something I watched and was hooked, and I never came unhooked. So.
Nor should you.
No, you shouldn't. It's a sin, damn it. It's a sin.
Well, have a great night. And thank you so much.
You have a great night too, Patrick. Thank you so much. God bless, man.
It's my pleasure. God bless you.
Bye.